your sports network.
Yeah, I've been closer to Jesus before, so can you help me out? Oh, can you help me out? Am I on my own? Am I on my own? But can you help me out? Am I on can you help me out? Can you help me out? I've been scared to look in my soul. I've been afraid I would follow the road. Yeah, afraid of the things I've been told.
Hello, everybody, and welcome inside a Wednesday edition of Running Point on ysnlive.com. Brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown, and we are back to normal. I'm now back in the studio. We've gotten past the snowstorm, and Ty, you're back from vacation, and we have Wrestling Wednesdays with Gary Altizer.
Yeah, and I mean, glad to be back. Glad to be back on an eventful day, and glad to be back with Gary here to talk some wrestling to start off the return.
And Ty, we packed this show for your comeback today because we have two wrestling coaches joining us with Gary. In about 5 minutes, we'll be joined by Rich Stutz, the head coach of Crestview Wrestling. And then at 12:35, we'll be joined by Craig Shaw, the head coach of the Canfield Wrestling team. They'll both be joining us. And then after Wrestling Wednesdays, we have debuts from interviews with John Barnes, the head coach of the YSU women's basketball team, and an interview with Malia Majestro of the YSU women's basketball team. All of that along with Scotty's Trivia Challenge and more on today's show.
Jam-packed show. Glad to be back and glad to be talking some high school sports. So let's go.
Gary, I know it was a great weekend for you. Do you want to kind of recap this weekend before we get Coach Stutz on?
Yeah, we wrestled at the OVAC tournament this weekend. Largest conference tournament in the country, at least it used to be. Over 40 teams. We had two placers. Mason Sims, 106-pounder, he placed 7th, and my heavyweight Tyler Stanley placed 5th. Tyler made it to the semifinals, so he's one match away from getting to the finals. And for a second-year kid, he wrestled in his youth, but he came back last year as a junior, a second-year kid making it that far in that kind of a tournament was really something. And then the rest of my guys on the team, we only had 7 weight classes filled because I'm still not healthy. They all won matches for us. They all helped us score team points. We finished 3rd out of 13 in our class. And had we been healthy, it would have been in that top 2.
Looking at this too, Gary, I mean, when we're looking at like this point of the season, what is really some of the challenges that you see with wrestlers at this point of the season, as you know, kind of winding down, getting close, the end of the season around the corner?
Well, when you get this far in the season, you just want to stay healthy. That's the main thing. The sport's a grind, so it's a daily grind in the practice room, and then you've got 1 or 2 days a week where you're, battling with someone else. So just staying healthy at this point and staying fresh. And as the season goes on, you'll see a lot of coaches, and we do this too, where, we're going for 2 or 2.5 hours in practices. We kind of wind back on that because we're kind of where we need to be. We just need to maintain our cardio, and we need to just be sharp on our moves and keep our minds right. And to do that, you can't continue to keep the kids in a meat grinder every single day. So you'll see a lot of coaches will start backing off. Practice will end a little bit earlier as the weeks go on, and you just want your guys to stay healthy because right now it is, I think, the 19th, and we've only got about 5 weeks before sectional. So the season is winding down quick, and for us, starting last week all the way through the rest of the season, we've got match after match after match, and we've got our own home tournament this weekend, this Saturday, the annual Buck Bailey tournament. So we're trying to stay healthy for that. We have the EOWL tournament, and then we have a bunch of duels that we have to wrestle before sectional. So we're just trying to keep our kids healthy and their minds fresh.
Coach, I know this weekend, I don't want to spoil the news. I want you to be able to say it, but I know you're one of your assistant coaches got a pretty high honor. Do you want to talk about that and what that moment was like for you?
Yeah, so my assistant coach, my main assistant, Tim Sarge, he was awarded the OVAC Assistant Coach of the Year. I wanted to nominate him last year, but we didn't have the tournament because of COVID. So I took the chance to nominate him this year. They do Coach of the Year for each class, and then they give out one Assistant Coach of the Year for all 40-something teams. And Tim won. He's been a great addition to our program. He's really helped turn things around. Him and I we're a really good team. We work very well together, and he's really helped our technique and just helped to change the culture. It was deserved. I kept it a secret from him. I got his family all down there. He didn't know. None of the kids knew. It was only a couple of the assistant coaches and his family that knew. And when they announced his name, all the teams were down on all the mats. All 42 teams were standing there, all their coaches, all of their wrestlers, and they said his name, and the look on his face was great because he had no idea, but it was very, very well deserved. And he's been getting congratulations from a lot of people because they know the work and the time he's put in, and he's absolutely deserved of that honor.
And so much of that work and time is done behind the scenes. It's a great moment when people like that kind of get pushed in the limelight. And I know you wouldn't be the coach you are without the help and support that he gives you. So it must have been a great moment for you, and to see all that kind of hard work that he puts in kind of get paid off for a great moment.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Especially assistant coaches. Assistant coaches are completely behind the scenes. Nobody says they want to be an assistant coach for the glory, and that's not how Coach Sarge is. But they do so much for wrestling programs and all sports, really, that it's nice to see them recognized, and it's nice for a huge conference like the OVAC to give out an award like that. So it was really exciting, and I'm happy for him, and I'm glad that he got this because I just can't say it enough. He absolutely deserved it.
All right, we're going to be joined by another head coach on Wrestling Wednesdays with Gary Altizer. We're going to be popping in Rich Steltz, the head coach of the Crestview wrestling team, and we have no video. I can see him in the screen. Coach, can you hear us?
Glitch Gremlin's attacking. Oh, there we go. We got him.
Can you hear us, Coach?
He may need to unmute his mic.
If you can hear us, Coach, and your mic is muted, make sure there's no red line through your mic on StreamYard. Although his picture looks frozen, he might have connection issues too.
Glitch Gremlins always like to attack too.
Yeah, we went a couple of days without him. We got hit a little bit.
When we're together, it doesn't work. They don't like us on the show together.
Coach Steltz, he's been around a long time at that Crestview program. I know this is his first year he's taking over as the head coach. So I'm sure he'll have a lot to tell us about that Crestview program.
While we await connection issues, Gary, as you know, we have wrestling big dogs that came that came to the mat, as well as we're excited to be doing this now, and YSN is excited to see these wrestling communities. What do you think we can expect from these wrestling communities, and what do you think the excitement is going to be now for wrestlers to kind of get that a little bit more of an individual achievement week to week?
I think you're going to be surprised at the engagement from the wrestling community. It's a tight-knit community, and it's a passionate community. So I just think that the more the YSN expands the wrestling coverage, the more engagement you're going to get from the fans and the folks who follow YSN. And I'm betting that the votes for that I'm looking at right now, those 6 kids there on the Wrestling Big Dogs of Valley, you're going to probably see a really nice high vote count. And being that it's the first week, I imagine it will continue to go up from there.
Yeah, and we know, the communities that are on there, I mean, we know how good Beaver Local and Wellsville both vote for their people, and no matter what the sport is. So I think the vote total for a week might just absolutely snap its record.
Oh, yeah?
When we get these guys, yeah, we bring in a wrestling community in as well. I think it's gonna be insane too. And I mean, coach, you have Tyler Stanley. That's one that's on there too. I mean, just being a coach of one of the guys that are up for Big Dog, just talk to me about the importance he has not only on the team but in the community and in the school as well.
Yeah, Tyler's he's a well-known kid in town. He was a starting tackle on the football team, probably since he was a freshman. He's also the kicker, believe it or not. And as the season went on, his senior year, he got better and better at kicks. He got to really nail down the extra points. So, and then with wrestling, like I said a little bit ago, he wrestled in his youth, and then he stopped wrestling and then came back last year, his junior year. So he's kind of just basically a second-year kid. Yeah, he had some time on the mat when he was younger, but there had been so much time in between. It was basically like he was starting over. And for him to be able to come in and do so well last year, he was a district qualifier. He won a match and almost won a second match while he was there. And now placing at the OVAC tournament, making it all the way to the semifinals, and then placing fifth. It's just nice to see him do so well. He's been a big help for our team. He's been an absolute help for us in duels and in tournaments. He placed at the D3 Classic, and he's placing at the OVAC. I expect him to place at the EOWL as well coming up, and then at sectionals, and then we'll see at districts. I know his weight class at districts is the deepest weight class in our district from what I've been reading. So he'll have his work cut out for him, but I got confidence in him that he's got a real shot to get to Columbus. And so having a kid like that, we're the smallest school in the EOWL and one of the smallest schools in the OVAC. So for us to have a kid to come back out for wrestling and be able to make that much of a difference is really huge for us. It's been nice all around. He's just been another leader in the room.
Yeah, we are actively working on getting Coach back into the show as we are struggling with those technical issues. So once again, if you're tuning in for Coach Stouts and seeing what he has to say about Crestview, we're working on it. We're trying to get him back. And Gary, when you look at some of these other kids on the list for Big Dogs of the Valley, I mean, it's a who's who in wrestling right now. And we picked a good first debut list of wrestlers in the area.
Yeah, I tell you what, all 6 of these kids are state ranked. Some of them really high. The Lintner kid from Fitch is ranked 8th at 157 in Division 1, which is the big school division. You've got Logan Hours, obviously ranked 1st in Division 2. O'Horo is ranked in the top 10 in Division 1. Dylan Smith just had his 100th win for Poland. He is ranked 5th at 190. Quentin Burns from Liberty is a 106-pounder. He wrestles for Haiti up there in Liberty. He's ranked as well as Tyler. So all these kids are well known in their communities as good wrestlers, not only there but around in the local area. So I'm excited to see how many votes you get. I'm excited to see who wins because they are all very, very deserving.
Yeah, and you'll look at this just to put in perspective on how much the wrestling community is coming out to vote. It's only been up for maybe 12 hours ish, and it's already over 12,000 votes for just wrestling alone.
Wow, nice.
Doing big things. And talking about wrestling too, Gary. When we look at basketball, Anthony and I always discuss things on what puts you on a big dog list that automatically you get 1,000 points in your career. That's an automatic. You score 50 breaking records. So talk to me about some achievements that some of these kids can get that you would think would automatically be deserving to put them on this list.
For this area, I would say the EOWL tournament is coming up, and it's a really tough tournament and probably the toughest league in the state of Ohio. If you just look at the individuals that are in this league year after year, what they do at the state tournament, they all, a lot of these kids go on to wrestle in college. So I would say be on the lookout for the EOWL champions, or maybe some kid that comes out of the blue and is able to place at that EOWL tournament. Last week, we had Coach McComas from Beaver Local on. I asked him if he had anybody that may be flying under the radar that could do something, and he mentioned the name Dorian Jackson. Well, lo and behold, Dorian Jackson was unseeded at the OVAC tournament, beat 2 really high seeds and made it to the finals. So that would be the kind of kid that I would look out for and would say would be deserving of a nomination, because that's a kid that's wrestled behind some really good starters. He's filled in for them. I know last year he bumped up in weight to help out the team. So this year he's a senior. He finally gets to wrestle what he weighs, and he's going out there and he's making noise. He beat a couple really good kids to get to the finals. So I would say, keep on the lookout for not only the EOWL champions that are in the YSN network, but also kids like Dorian who are going to come out of nowhere and make some noise.
And then I imagine when you the scores go dramatically and you win in handily or you win in a pin, those are kind of things that are equivalent to maybe like a 30-point performance in basketball, right? I mean, like you win a match handedly or you win your match handedly really quick. That's kind of an equivalent. So if we see a kid in a duels and he wins his match, very, very quick or very handedly, that might be the equivalent. Like, I think that's what Tyler's getting at. What can we gauge when we're looking at nightly recaps, what can we gauge as a stat to say this wrestler really needs to get on big dogs this week?
Okay. So pulling an upset in a duel, you get somebody pulling an upset, somebody maybe that's unranked beats a ranked kid, or maybe just somebody nobody's heard of. And sometimes you just catch somebody with a throw or they put themselves in a bad position and get pinned. So the equivalent of a 30-point night, I would say a big upset in a duel. And when a kid does something like that, especially if it's a close duel, if you get somebody to upset another kid that the other team is basically already penciled in for a win, it makes a huge difference in wrestling. Because if you think about it, you've got the ranked kid, the favorite, he's expected to pin his opponent. That's 6 points for his team. Now we flip-flop that. There's a 12-point swing in the match. So something like that not only he pulls the upset, but maybe his team now upsets their opponent where they weren't given a shot before. I know as a coach who's experienced that once or twice, that is huge. And those kind of kids definitely deserve the recognition.
Yeah, and we apologize. We keep trying to get Coach Stouts on. He's been on a couple of times, but glitch gremlins keep taking that away. So yeah, those are the things that we'll look out for. Obviously, just like basketball, volleyball, football, fan nominations go a long way. So if you're a wrestling fan out there and you see a very good night or a good stat line that you think we should recognize, then send us a message on any of our social media platforms with the athlete's name, the athlete's school, and what the stat line is that makes him deserving to be on Big Dogs. And we'll take those nominations, we'll stack them against other nominations, and that's how we kind of come up with our 6 every week. So we're happy to debut wrestling in this Big Dogs of the Valley, and obviously the fans are happy too. They are over 12,000 votes.
The thing with wrestling too that's interesting, comparative to any other big dog voting I think we've had, everything else is somewhat dependent on the team. And teams make basketball, if you're having a good game basketball, your team has a part in that success. Same thing with football, same thing with volleyball. But with this, it's that one individual. That individual needs to have a good week against other individuals. So it's very interesting because this is like the first time it's very individualistic in our voting too, to where these players, it's all them. It's not because of a product of a team really helping them. Yeah, it is emotionally, yeah, and the support side for motivation on the sides, but them having a great week, it's going to be all them, and that's a unique accomplishment, I think, and I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, it's definitely a different beast. There is a team aspect. You score team points, you matter. Even if you don't win your match, not getting pinned helps your team, but you're out there by yourself, and there is no, you can't call timeout and ask for a substitution. It's you and your opponent and the referee on the mat, and that's it. So I'm glad YSN is get it going all in on wrestling. I think it's going to be a great thing because I know, for one, the wrestling community is really looking for outlets and really looking for ways to see more matches, to find out more information, to get more and better results. Just literally scores of matches. It's one of those dual meet reporting dual meet results is really difficult to keep up with for some reason. I don't know why. With tournaments, there's a handful of websites that most people use to run their tournaments, to track the results, to see who wrestled who, what the score was. And some of the software is really great. It even tells you what points were scored and when. But for a dual meet, if it's not called into the newspaper or someone doesn't put it on their Facebook page, you just don't know the results. So the more that I feel like we talk about these things and post the results, that the more traffic, will drive to the site, and the more engagement we'll get.
Yeah, and when you look at it, Coach, one of the coaches that we're going to have on next, if the Gremlins let us, is going to be Craig Shaw of the Canfield wrestling team. And obviously the bigger schools like that have a little bit more leeway to their teams and who they can put on the floor. What do you know about the Canfield wrestling program and what they bring to the table? And give us a little preview of what we might hear from Coach Shaw.
They have a great tradition there. I know there was 2 or 3 years, 2 for sure, where they finished the state runners-up in Division II. They had a really great lineup from 106 all the way through heavyweight. I know they had some battles with Beaver Local, where there would be some close matches. I know a couple years ago I went to Beaver Local and saw them. They beat Beaver Local in a really close one, but it was a dogfight with both schools in just about every match. They've had state champions. They've had guys that have come out for wrestling that hadn't wrestled before. That I believe they had a kid that wrestled 220, I believe, a few years ago, that only wrestled a couple years and was a state champion, and he wrestles in Division I now, I believe. They've had an Ironman champion not too long ago, about 4 or 5 years ago. Giorgio Paulus was an Ironman champion, and we talked about Ironman and what a difficult tournament that is, and how it's nationally recognized as the hardest high school tournament in the country. And I believe he went on to wrestle at Cleveland State. I was doing a little bit of research. They have 4 state-ranked kids right now, 2 juniors and 2 seniors. And I believe today they wrestle Akron St. Vincent St. Mary, who's obviously known for LeBron James, but they also have a really great wrestling program and wrestling tradition there. And they are ranked in the top 10 in the state all the time. So that should be a good duel tonight. So I'll be curious to hear what Coach Shaw has to say about his team and the rest of the season.
We're going to try to get Coach Stouts from Crestview to call in. At least we'll get his voice on the show. Obviously, if he's on the phone line, you two won't be able to talk to him. He won't be able to hear you guys. But we can still have him highlight his kids and talk about some of the highlights of his program and the kids that are having such a good season. So hopefully we'll get a call here in a little bit from Coach Stouts.
Looking at the wrestling too, like Gary said, 5 weeks out from sectionals. I think February 18th is the beginning of it. I think they go 18th to the 23rd, at least in Division II, and what I'm seeing. Is there anything? Obviously you're always trying to get better, but what is the mindset of these kids as they are nearing sectionals? I know you're trying to stay healthy at this point though, but the kids that are able to qualify for these individuals in sectionals, what's kind of the mindset going in if you know you're kind of already going to be there, but you have all this time in between?
Yeah, not looking ahead. That's another thing. You can't look ahead to anything in this sport. You just have to keep your mind sharp on what you're doing right now, because I'll tell you, the second you look ahead is when you start losing matches that you shouldn't, and you start underperforming. If you're thinking about anything but the guy in front of you or the match in front of you, and then you're not putting all of your mental focus into what you need to be. So staying focused, not getting too far ahead of yourself, and just worrying about today or what we have to do tomorrow. So it's a long season, it's a grind, but if you run your practices right, you don't try to beat your kids up too much in practice, run them into the ground, and if they stay focused on what's ahead of them, they won't get too far ahead. And sectionals is going to come when it comes. It'll get here when it gets here. Worry about what we have to do now.
When is that tournament draw for sectionals, by the way? I know basketball is coming up on us pretty quick. Is wrestling like basketball, where it's it won't be the end of the season? You'll have to have the tournament draw like 2 weeks before the end of the season really is?
Yeah, so it'll probably be the week before. So probably the 3rd week in February, we'll have a coaches meeting. You'll have to submit your kids, and then there are criteria for seeding. And then if someone wants to challenge somebody's seeding based on the criteria. So if you have a returning state champion, you're going to get the number 1 seed by default. But if by some chance that state champion has lost to someone in your sectional and in that weight class, a coach can argue that his kid should be number 1. And then I believe it comes either to a vote or again by a second set of criteria to see who gets the seed. And then it goes from there. This is for the individual tournament. The dual state tournament, the state of Ohio, the OHSAA, is not doing it this year. It is the Coaches Association. So that is going to happen probably, I think it's the first weekend in February this year. And that's a whole different animal.
I just love that you can challenge the seeding. Can you imagine if we let basketball coaches challenge their tournament seeding? Like, be like, yeah, we
well, I mean, it makes sense. If you
I
beat someone head to head, I mean, that's the ultimate tiebreaker in my mind. I know that baseball used to not do that. I think they do now. I'm not a big baseball guy, so I could be wrong, but I think everything used to be based on your record. And then if there was somehow, I don't know, if there was a tie, but the criteria was your conference or your league record, it didn't matter if you were 10-0 against that team. Well, in wrestling, I mean, that's the ultimate trump card. It doesn't matter if you're a defending state champ. If you've lost to someone, then that coach has a really good argument as to why his kid should be seated ahead of you.
How much does that go into strategy during the season and putting emphasis on, okay, you're matching up with a kid that you're going to be pretty close to in the seedings. If you beat this kid, you'll have his tiebreaker and you'll be able to probably be seated above him in the sectionals.
Oh, it absolutely goes into play. And you'll even see, in duels at the end of the season, if somebody has beaten a kid that they're going to see at sectionals, they might sit out a duel so that they don't take a chance of losing to them. Or they may, intentionally make sure they're there and weigh in at that weight to wrestle that person to try to beat them to get a higher seed. So it definitely goes into play. But most of the time, especially at sectionals, it plays out the way it should. The better kids are going to rise to the top. Does your draw matter? Does your seed matter? Absolutely, because you can be put in a really tough spot where you have to go through a couple of really tough kids to get into the top 4. But usually, especially at sectionals, it works itself out.
Looking at this too, Gary, I mean, how important and how influential is 1 week in a wrestling regular season influential to how they're going to be ranked for the tournament draw? So I guess in a sense, what I'm saying is going into like maybe the last week or last 2 weeks of the regular season, can a great week shoot somebody up as far as the seedings wise? And should they, I mean, obviously you want to take every match important, but it doesn't seem like with wrestling, there's really any of those garbage games, or not necessarily that, but games where they don't matter because you already made it, such as other football or basketball, like tournament draws.
Right. Yeah, you're exactly right. It's not to my knowledge, there isn't anybody that wrestles the week of sectionals. So in other words, they're not wrestling in a duel on Wednesday. I don't know anybody that does that. And most teams don't do anything the week or two before sectionals because they don't want to get hurt. They don't want anybody to get hurt. They just want to stay healthy, have a couple of weeks to get their kids rested up, healed up, if we're ready for sectionals. So you're right. There isn't any throwaway matches. There aren't any throwaway duels. Every single match counts for the team and for the individual. So they have to stay sharp all year long, and it's tough to do. You can get tired. The season can wear on you. So staying sharp for every single match matters. And if you have a bad week, the last week that you wrestle before sectionals, whether it's the week before, 2 weeks before, if you were to have a couple duels and then maybe a tournament and you lose to a couple of guys that are in your sectional, then you could really hurt yourself for your seed. And then that situation that I just mentioned where maybe you have to go through a couple of good guys just to get in the top 4. Now you're like, okay, this is do or die time. It's time to get serious because last week really did me in.
All right, guys, we are going to be joined by Mr. Craig Shaw, the head coach of the Canfield wrestling team that we kind of previewed a little bit earlier. So let's talk to him about how their season is going down in Canfield. Coach, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Coach, as we like to start off with all of our coaches, we always like to start off with a sort of meet the team segment. So, giving you the chance and opportunity now, I want you to highlight some of the bigger names in your program and some of the ones you've been impressed with this season that have kind of come in as maybe not dark horses, but ones that no one was really saying the name of, but they're saying the name of a lot now.
Yeah, I think we have a lot of those type of kids actually. Came in here with a good solid group of juniors, and we only have 2 seniors on team, Ian Hall and Ray Zagarani. I can't really pronounce his name, but Ian Hall was leading the way for sure. His work ethic, his dedication, he wants to be good this year and have a good end of his career. So he found a way just to work hard and improve and buy into what I'm trying to do here. And he's making the other kids catch on. He's having an incredible year. We have 4 kids over 20 wins already this season. And Ian Hall's definitely led the way when it comes to that. But then our good group of juniors with Chris Thomas, Noah Frank, Nico Polis, all the kids have been around the sport for a long time. The Jimmy Shares, say they've been around the program, and they're having nice years and just constantly improving. So that's kind of where we're at right now. It's just a constant improvement of every kid. So that's exciting to see. And a couple other names I can really think of. We have a couple good freshmen right now. Quinn Gaker's having a nice season down at 106. And Tyler Scher, he's a freshman, 126-pounder. He only has 1 loss on the year so far. So pretty good run right now for a freshman. So we're going to see how we finish up here at the end. And we only have done dual meets so far. So we're 25 right now as dual meets because all the big tournaments we're scheduled to go to got canceled. So we went over the smaller dual meet tournaments.
Coach, before every season starts, I know coaching staffs kind of look at what they have and make kind of an expectations of the season. Now that we're enough through the season, where is your team based on where you expected them to be in the preseason and coming into this year?
They are above where I thought we would be. We are at the point right now where this is kind of where I want to end it, or I thought we would just end the season, kind of where we're at. But we got to this point faster than I could have ever thought of, just because really these kids have bought into the program and they're enjoying themselves and it's just going the right way. So we've climbed the ladder pretty quickly for us.
Looking at Division II, Coach, I mean, I feel like there's a lot of big teams in this name. And looking at this as well, it's Akron, St. Vincent, St. Mary's tonight. Just talk to me about the challenge that this is going to be and how this kind of duel is going to help prepare your boys come tournament time.
Exactly. So we were excited to add Akron St. Vincent tonight just because with the stuff being canceled, we had an extra half point to play with. So today, so we wanted to meet up and see each other because we both have pretty solid lineups. They probably have more kids that stand out on paper right now. So it's good for us to challenge ourselves just to see where we're really at. We've done some nice things this year so far, but we always want to keep climbing that ladder and test ourselves. And tonight is just a good test. That's all it is. It's not going to make or break anybody's season by any stretch of your imagination, but it's just a good measuring stick against another good team.
And when you have this perfectly timed measuring stick, I mean, I imagine it's the perfect time of the season to have a match like this. When you said it, you're kind of exceeding expectations, and now you can see exactly where you're at. I imagine it's a perfectly timed measuring stick match, right, Coach?
Oh, I would 100% agree because January is always grind time for us. In my season plan, January is just supposed to be that grind month where you go through hard competition, you see where you're at, and we're right in the middle of it. So I haven't seen V. We have the Hefner coming up this weekend, which is a nice tournament over at Fitch. And then with our league EOWL tournament being next week, you're talking about a lot of matches in a short period of time that are challenging matches. And that's kind of what we want. We want to embrace that opportunity to challenge ourselves and to really see where we're at and what we got to work on and what we're good at.
Coach Shaw, do you, I know with us, we try to kind of ramp up our competition as the season goes on to kind of get our kids harder and harder matches as they go on so that once we get to sectionals, we know we're battle tested and ready. Is that kind of how you've made your schedule? I know with everything getting canceled, it probably threw a wrench in that, but with the duels? It sounds like you've been wrestling your butt off in these duels. Have you tried to do that? Try to get these harder matches for your kids so they can get ready for the postseason?
Yes, typically my typical type of schedule is in December. I like to do a lot of duels because I think it's good team bonding and we get a lot of matches and we build that way. But then January, like I said, I like it being grind time and a lot of more individual stuff. But we had the D's canceled, Top Gun canceled. So it's like, okay, what can we do now? So we started setting up duels. So last Friday, instead of going to Top Gun, we had North Canton Hoover come in. Brexville came in and wrestled us along with Alliance. So we had a nice quad. And then we wrestled West Geauga and had 4 other matches on Saturday. Then we got St. V today. So we just tried to find the best competition possible. And really everybody's scrambling to find that right now. So we did a really good job picking up some really high level talent to wrestle.
We've had the honor to see how great Canfield supports their athletics on all fronts too, but now we kind of get to shine the spotlight over on the wrestling community. And talk to me a little bit about that, Coach. What kind of support you get from the Canfield community, and are there a lot of wrestle heads out there in Canfield that really support you guys?
Oh, for sure. Canfield loves wrestling. That was a big reason for me to come over this way. Just to have that support with the parents and the school administration and all the teachers here, and then the community on top of that. So we've had more people at home matches than I've seen in most wrestling gyms, and I've been around a good bit coaching wrestling and wrestling myself. So it's impressive, and it's very flattering and honored, and I'm honored to be a part of it. So and try to build on it, that tradition, and just to keep it going and try to see if we can get the new heights.
And and we all know that wrestling is so much on energy. You got to have a lot of energy in a wrestling match, and I'm sure this crowd really lets you feed into it. What's it like having them back and being able to feed off that home crowd and to be able to feed off their energy?
That is exciting. Obviously, to have the crowd and the parents yelling and screaming, and I do a pretty good job of that myself. I don't just sit in the chair and coach for most of the time. If anybody's seen me coach before, so I'm pretty into it myself. Try to stay high energy, high intensity, and hopefully all that goes over to the kids and just helps them go to another level during those competitions. And it starts with the crowd, then it goes to me, and then ultimately the kids have to buy in and feel it, and then it helps the cause for sure.
Coach, what do you expect out of the OWL tournament this year? I mean, it's always featuring a lot of great wrestlers, a lot of really high ranked kids. We've got even some nationally ranked kids this year wrestling in the tournament. And you know, you can go through each team. It seems like every team's got a couple of state ranked kids. What are you expecting out of next weekend?
I'm expecting a meat grinder tournament, as it is and has been for a while now. It is just another measuring stick for everybody. We could compare ourselves to more local teams just in our league, but there's a ton of talent there. So we just want to kind of see where we're at again, figure out where we're good, where we're bad, things we got to work on, because our ultimate goal was the peak at the end of February, come sectionals and districts. So we just take this tournament for what it is. It's a really good tournament. It's a meat grinder. We embrace that competition and want to challenge ourselves. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think the boys are too.
Talk a little bit about the culture that you're trying to build, or that you have built there at Canfield now, to where when these kids are kind of done with you, they could look back at the impression you left and say, I learned this from Coach Shar. I got this from the Canfield wrestling program.
I hope they learn toughness, learn how to be tough, go through hard times, go through adversity, and get to the other side. I always tell these kids, you got to go through the hard to get to the good. And what we want to do as a wrestling team, as a coach, is make them go through hard stuff so they can see how it pays off at the end and get to the other side, which should be good, and their improvement and everything else. So I want them to go through adversity and go through tough times, and we can control that on wrestling mat other than real life, but it teaches them those skills. So when they are older and they do go through life problems, which always happens to everybody, they know how to handle it and get to the other side.
Coach, we know that head coaches get all the interviews, to get all the limelight, but I want to give you the chance to highlight your coaching staff, the people that work with you in this program, and the people that make this Canfield program what it is, because I know a lot of people do stuff behind the scenes that they don't get enough credit for.
Oh, this coaching staff is incredible. Coming here was such an easy transition from Coach Pitts to myself. Coach Pitts is still on staff. He's helping me every step of the way. We're a good team. We work really well together. He's good in areas that I'm not, and vice versa. So we're supporting each other that way. So I give him a lot of credit for helping us transition for myself. Coach Steve DeMilo is fantastic. He's been in the room, high energy guy. He does so much for the program. He's exciting to have around. Coach Hogg, he's incredible. He's also a trainer. He's been coaching wrestling for 36 years or something, insane amount of time, and he loves it, and the kids love him. So it's really cool to see him. Coach Langham, he's always around helping, supporting kids. And I would be remiss if I didn't talk about Adonis Watson. He came over. He coached with me at Alliance, and I actually coached him in Alliance, and he followed me here to Canfield to be one of my assistants. So he's a big plus for me.
Coach, and also talk about your youth program and what you guys like to do to get these wrestlers ready and developed for you when they get to be a freshman, and you guys get to work with them when they get into high school.
Yeah, so the youth program, we're kind of revamped it this year a little bit. So for me, youth is all about learning to love the sport, learn the fundamentals, learn to love it, and then just build on that. Nobody really cares if you win a state title when you're 7, 8, 9 years old. Yeah, it's exciting, but really we want you to love it and just learn the sport and learn the technique and the fundamentals that come along with it. I'm fortunate right now. I have a 6-year-old boy who wanted to wrestle this year, so like I'm letting him practice 1 day a week. And I just want them to be around it and enjoy it. And I think the more we do that with our young kids, then when they get to that 10, 11, 12-year range where we can really teach them good fundamental wrestling and then build that from there to the middle school, then when they get to the freshman level, they're going to be ready to rock and roll.
Talking about getting these kids ready, what is the biggest thing you've learned since your time being a wrestler to this point now about the sport?
Biggest thing I've learned, there's a lot to say that goes into that answer. But one thing I've done better as a coach in the past couple of years is getting my kids to peak at the right time and managing their training the right way. Whether it's certain days we go hard or easy or even days off, because rest and nutrition is almost as important as a hard day of training. So it's important to walk the line and have a good balance of both. And just making sure your mind and body are ready to go by the end of February.
Coach, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. It was great to hear from you. Great to kind of get a spotlight on the Canfield Wrestling program, and we look forward to your continued success. And hopefully we hear from you again real soon.
Yes, sir. Thank you guys very much. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Coach.
That was Craig Shaw, the head coach of Canfield Wrestling and their program. We definitely thank him again for his time, and we love hearing from wrestling coaches on Wednesdays. Gary, what were some of your takeaways from that interview and some more things you can say about the Canfield program and what they're putting together this year?
Well, what he said at the end there was great. Just something we had just talked about, peaking at the right time. And, like he said, rest and nutrition is just as important as the practice time and pushing yourself in the room. So getting your kids to peak at the right time is pivotal in this sport. And you'll see, as a wrestling coach, you'll see teams that, maybe they'll peak in the middle of the season or at the beginning of the season. Then when the end of the season comes, you'll see kids that you expected to do better at sectionals or districts not placing or getting beat in spots that you didn't see. And that's because of what Coach was saying there. You need to have them peak at the right time. And how do you do that? You just kind of have to know your own kids and balance the work and balance the rest. Like he said, go later on some days and even give some days off. So that's really what stood out to me there. But I was really glad to hear him say, how important his assistant coaches are and how well he works together with them, because there's no being a wrestling coach, you're not a man on an island. You can't be. It just doesn't work in this sport because everything is so individual. You have to focus on each kid individually, and you can only be pulled in so many directions as one person.
Ty, I don't know about you, but one of the takeaways I had from that interview was how important buying into the program is and how important buying into the culture that the coach is trying to set is. I mean, he said the biggest reason why they are passing the expectations that they had in the preseason is simply because how fast and how well these kids have bought into what they're trying to teach them in the program. It's not easy. It doesn't happen overnight, and you can't just say, kid, hey, buy in, and they're going to buy in. But to see that Canfield has done it quickly and done it efficiently, getting kids to buy into the culture that he's setting, is pretty impressive.
Yeah, and I mean, when the bumpers are up to prevent gutter balls, it makes it a lot easier to hit strikes. And that those bumpers are exactly the Canfield community, because the families and the parents do a great job of supporting a lot of their sports and a lot of their programs. And as Coach said, too, I mean, you look at the boosters, you look at just the overall support that Canfield gets for their athletics, it continues over to wrestling. So when you kind of have that safety net of the parents, too, there, it makes it a little bit easier for the kids to buy in because the parents are already buying in as well.
I bet you didn't know that we could bring a bowling metaphor into our wrestling chat.
Try to do everything we can, right? Try to do everything we can. But no, I mean, just that's the biggest thing I wanted to ask too with you, Gary. I mean, he talked a lot about diet, and I know this is a big thing, and sports science has shown us that exercising it for a multitude of sports has kind of changed over the course of time, and we're finding out different muscle groups working those out result in better things. But for wrestling, I wanted to know, has diet always had this kind of microscope on it, even when you were back in wrestling and even before that, or is this something that's kind of evolved and changed over time, or how has diet really been influential for wrestling, and how long has it been influential?
Well, if you're in the wrestling community, it's always been there. I mean, because your weight is such a huge part of the sport, it's definitely always been there. It is coming more into the limelight now, and in college has changed some things where I believe you weigh in and then you wrestle within an hour because they don't want any unhealthy weight cutting measures done. In the state of Ohio now, of course, you have to get the alpha test, and it will tell you what weight you're allowed to go on what date and what date you're allowed to go that weight. So things like what you eat, what you drink, what you put in your body, when you put it in your body, how much of it you put in your body is becoming more and more mainstream. But within the wrestling community, it has always been there. And some of the old school coaches had it figured out a long time ago, what sticks to your body and what doesn't. You'll lose fat weight as the season goes on, but for the week, if you were to eat a lot of salty stuff or a lot of carbs, that water weight's going to stick to you. And a lot of the old school coaches were already in on that, knew how to coach their wrestlers in what to eat and what not to.
Gary, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the biggest growth in that conversation is how we've kind of figured out that individualized diet and how every kid will be affected differently by different kind of foods. And when we dive into nutrition, the advancements we've made in kind of the nutrition field and things like that are probably the biggest growth in the wrestling sport and the wrestling diet conversations, and maybe a little bit more realizing that every kid can have different things that either stick to their body or don't.
Right. Absolutely. It's definitely individual, just like anything else. Some people respond better to some foods than others. I know I had a kid a couple years ago that if he walked down the potato chip aisle, he's gaining 5 pounds of water weight just because when he ate carbs, water weight stuck to him like crazy. So we figured that out over the years. So he knew that when he got close to the tournament time, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, he just backed off on his carbs. He upped his protein. He would eat chicken and salads and drink water, and he never had a problem with his weight after his freshman year because we kind of figured out what worked for him and what didn't. Other kids, it might be the opposite of that. Maybe they do better with carbs and worse with protein. So it just depends on the person. It depends on how much weight how they're maintaining their weight, and whether or not they're actively watching what they eat, because a lot of times they don't.
I gotta figure too, Gary. I mean, when you bring nutrition into it, not that it's not stressed in other sports, but it has to be stressed in wrestling, like you said. So it's not like where other sports practice ends and you get that break. You kind of always need to be on the watch. You always kind of have to be in that train mode during wrestling season. Talk to me a little bit. I gotta figure that kind of discipline has to have an effect just not on them as a wrestler, but on them as a person overall, as they grow up to young men in society, just having that kind of mentality and being able to be that discipline.
Absolutely. Like we always say, wrestling's 90% mental. It's another mental task that you have to master. You have to be able to tell yourself, hey, eating this blizzard from the Dairy Queen is not going to do me any good on Saturday, or as good as this chicken salad that I could have over here. So it's just another thing that the kids have to mentally be aware of, be cognizant of. And the more you master this, the less stress you have on you during the season. Because if you're not watching your weight, if you're not eating right, as the season goes on, it's going to get harder.
Coach, we thank you for taking the time to join us on another Wrestling Wednesday. This is always a great time, and I love that we're starting to incorporate coaches into it. We wish we could have gotten Coach Stelz on. We just had some connection issues. We'll try to get him on later on in the season. We'll definitely want to talk about Crestview Wrestling. But I want to thank Craig Shaw for coming on and giving us his time with Canfield Wrestling. And Gary, as always, thank you for giving us so much of your time and giving us kind of a expertise in the wrestling field and the wrestling sports.
Hey, thanks for having me on. If there's any coaches listening, we're having our home Buck Bailey tournament this Saturday. Anybody wants to send their kids in, can just contact me on Facebook or shoot me an email.
Do you want to go over some of the teams that are already locked into that?
Yeah, we have some local teams coming. I think most of the EOAC teams will be there. Columbiana, Wellsville, with Southern locals coming, Steubenville Big Red is sending wrestlers, South Range, Western Reserve, Toronto. So it'll be a nice mix of small schools and bigger schools. We'll be sending some guys with them.
All right. If you want a part of it, like Gary said, get a hold of him and get into that tournament. It's going to be a good one at Wellsville. Gary, we'll see you next week, and maybe we can recap how that tournament goes and how other stuff this weekend goes. And we'll have another batch of Baird Brothers Big Dog of the Valley Wrestlers to talk about as well.
Thank you. Hopefully my voice is back next week.
We look forward to it, Gary. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Wrestling Wednesdays, you got to love it, Ty. You got to love it. We are going to take our first break of the day. We'll be back with more Running Point brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown.
New things happen all day. Some are good, some not so good. In today's complicated world, while you're busy working, playing, and living life, we're busy helping you make sense of the day's news. And there's only one place where it comes together with clarity, context, and accountability. It's 21 News at 6 with me, Madison Tromler, and Derek Steyer.
21 News at 6. It's what the day's news really means to you.
Welcome home to a home made homier with Baird Brothers Fine Hardwoods. Inspiration starts at BairdBrothers.com and is turned into reality when high-quality hardwoods are delivered right to your home. Baird Brothers has the latest design trends, shiplap and skinny lap interior siding, antique oak rustic flooring, and, well, you'll find them all at BairdBrothers.com. Ordered easily, delivered conveniently, enjoyed comfortably. BairdBrothers.com.
At Greenwood Chevrolet, shop with confidence knowing we're ready to go the extra mile for you. With the largest selection of used vehicles in the Valley, backed by the Greenwood Advantage Warranty. Every one of our vehicles has undergone our own 126-point inspection, so it passes the most important inspection, yours. No other dealership has the extra inventory, gives you extra for your trade, and goes the extra mile for you. Only at Greenwood Chevrolet.
WRS Wealth Advisors, the area's premier wealth and retirement specialists. Located on South Avenue in Boardman.
Quality, customer service, and integrity. Those are the four words that have driven our success since 1957 at Joe Dickey Electric.
Joe Dickey Electric is one Mahoning Valley landmark business that stays current with the requirements of our customers. Family owned and managed, we are an electrical contractor and energy solutions provider. Every member of our team adds to his or her skill set through ongoing training. Residential, commercial, industrial, automotive, and more. We keep ahead of the needs of our customers with a fleet of more than 50 vehicles and 24/7 emergency service, so you're never left in the dark.
Welcome back to Running Point on ysnlive.com, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austin Town. Anthony Hartwig alongside Ty Bartell as we are back to a full crew on Running Point. Good to have you back, Ty. I know we had your normal send off, but it's always good to have you back from vacation.
Yep. Excited to be back too. Excited to get back to doing games this upcoming week, and just excited to be back talking some local sports.
You left and some chaos happened in the power rankings. I know you saw them.
I was paying attention very heavily to the power rankings, and boy, oh boy, did chaos ever ensue, especially on both sides right now, as we have two new number ones.
Two new number ones, as both number ones, just slipped up a little bit this week, and other teams took the opportunity and grabbed it by the horns and ran with it.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, having Camel and the Rockin' Red Devils at number one right now, as I've gotten the chance to call a few of their games. I'm going to have the chance to call another big one this week. I'm excited to see, hopefully, as long as we still have it go on. I'm knocking on wood for that one. But Camel has obviously been a team that has looked so good. You have Xavier Leonard, you have Luciano, you have Jameer Weaver, you have Kevin Moore. I mean, and then Kayvon Moore now coming off the bench. There's so many guys. Scavos, Koros. This is such a good team too. And then of course we know East Liverpool didn't drop that far, but both those teams are so phenomenal. And really, Camel, it's kind of hard not to keep ranking them that high because of what they're doing to their opponents. They're beating their opponents handily without that one slip up to Lowbelt Rocket Mortgage. That's literally been the only slip up. Every other game since, this has been a Camel team that has looked dominating.
I think it'll be interesting to see their second matchup and see how that goes with Lowville, because then that'll really put into perspective how much weight you put on that game in Rocket Mortgage. You gotta.
The second game is if they have it. That is, I don't know if they actually scheduled it or not, because they are in opposite.
I keep forgetting they're on the opposite.
Yeah, they're opposite conferences. Yeah, because I was gonna say, I was like, I didn't think they were in the same conference, but they sometimes do schedule twice too in that MVAC when they're going side to side.
And but I think they're in the same division. I think Camel's 3 and Lowville's 4.
Yeah. So I mean, Camel's really, I think they've just looked impressive though. And I mean, with Rocket Mortgage, you could, I guess, chalk it up to bad game, whatever. I mean, it's you're under the bright lights. I mean, could have shined too bright for them for that day. I guess they could have just gotten the better of them for one day. But since that game, they haven't looked stoppable since, and they look like they got right back to their to rocking H court.
We'll talk more about that as the week goes on, and more about that as more games get played, of course. This week has a couple of really big matchups for teams in the tops of those rankings.
I also am just saying that Liberty being ranked now up there is...
They got their chance. Now they have to improve it.
Yeah.
People have been, kind of, okay, Liberty, you're there, you're undefeated. Okay. But they finally got their chance with other teams losing to kind of be in that top spot. Now it's their chance to go in and kind of prove it.
Haven't dropped a game yet, too. So, I mean, you got to figure it's your spot to hold it till as long as you can now.
And they'll have big games this week as well as, that West Branch Salem game's coming up on Monday. That'll be big as far as power rankings, too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, whoever emerges out of that one, you should see them stay up there in the power rankings. But if someone drops that one, too, you got to imagine, too. That would put West Branch at 4 losses, Salem at 3, depending on who would lose.
Yes.
So, I mean, I don't know if it's enough to drop them completely off, but it would definitely drop them a little bit, I would think, in the power rankings.
If West Branch won that game, they would each have 3 losses, but the big difference would be all 3 losses for Salem would, of course, be in the EBC, and West Branch would only have 1 loss in the EBC. So that would be a very big shift.
I feel like conference games have a little bit more weight too. I mean, at least if it were my voting, I'd say conference games. I feel like you got to put importance on those too. And for Salem, Marlington's in the same division, correct?
Yeah, they'll be in the same district, actually, the same division and same district.
That's the one too.
So is West Branch. I mean, we could be seeing Salem West Branch round 3.
We could be. But, I mean, that's the one team Salem hasn't been able to get over. Every single other team this season, Salem has proven that they can beat them. They can hold them on defense. Howland had points on them. Give them that. but Marlington seems to be that kryptonite for this Lady Quakers team, but they might have a chance to redeem themselves still. And we know too, basketball is that funny sport. We all remember Crestview Brookfield.
I know. We all remember that for sure. It's a very special day on Running Point, Ty. You know why? Because we have, for the first time on our Running Point, representation from Youngstown State. We have interviews with John Barnes, the head coach of the women's basketball team over there, and Malia Majestro, one of the starters of that Youngstown State women's basketball team that is off to a historic start. Let's go into those interviews and see what both of them had to say about the start to the season in Youngstown State. We'll start with the head coach, Coach Barnes, here on Running Point.
Anthony Hartwig here with a very special guest today, joined by the head coach of the women's basketball team at Youngstown State, John Barnes. Coach, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
No problem. Appreciate you having me on.
You know, and a historic start for this team. You've done a better start in the Horizon League than any other team in Penguins history. When you looked at this roster in the preseason and you kind of set your expectations and the standard that you wanted to reach, where are you now compared to where you expected to be when you kind of evaluated your roster at the beginning of the season?
Well, I think it was a little bit of an unknown because we had so many new faces. So the biggest challenge was going to be how we brought them together and, our team chemistry, how we would work on and off the court. So really excited how well they've come together and how hard they play for each other. And it's been a lot of fun so far this year.
And you said it, a lot of new faces. This team might not look the way that fans expected it to after last year and the way it ended. What has it been like for you as a coach and a coaching staff to kind of adjust to the new faces and kind of build game plans around new players and new faces on the team?
We had to do a lot more team bonding type activities when the team got to YSU this summer. And it was just a lot of evaluating from the staff every day, what players do what and what are their strengths and weaknesses and how we can bring them together to do our best to have a good year.
And it's an incredible job from the staff too. And I want to give you the chance to highlight your coaching staff. I know you get all the interviews, you get all the limelight, but I know you couldn't do it without them. So highlight your coaching staff, who you have working with you, and what they each bring to the program.
Yeah, Coach Nicolay has been with me since the start of since I started here at YSU. So for 9 years, he's my associate head coach. He's been around coaching for a lot of years and does a great job with the recruiting and the X's and O's. And then Malika Glover is in her second year, I think, with me, and she does an outstanding job at scouting reports and individual workouts. And she's got a great personality, a lot of fun to be around. Chelsea Butler is new to the team this year. And she has brought a lot of energy, a lot of positivity, does a great job with the scouting reports, and she's our recruiting coordinator. So very happy to have her here. And then Jason Pakinowski is our director of basketball operations. And Jason's been around YSU for probably, 15, 16 years, something like that, because he was the men's director of basketball operations before for many years. So he probably knows more about YSU than the rest of us combined, and is kind of the guy that makes everything go.
You've been around this university and this program for a while now. What's it mean to you to represent the Youngstown State University and to be able to wear the Y on your shirt every day and go into work every day as a member of this athletics community that you're a part of?
Well, it's definitely a privilege because the university takes so much pride in their athletics and their women's basketball program especially. We've had a long a long time of being in the tops of the country in GPA and grade point average for our players. So that's really exciting for me because ultimately that's the most important thing. So very happy we can keep our grades up really high and represent YSU and the women's basketball program in a great light. We have great community support. I think we have the second highest attendance in the Horizon League. So it just shows what the community feels about the women's basketball program. And we want to do our best to keep it going well and keep the program being a great representative of the athletic department and YSU in general.
You touched on that. Community fans are back in the Bigley Center. They're rocking. They're giving you the energy. What's it been like as a team to kind of feed off the fans now this year and welcome them back into the Bigley Center?
It's been great. I mean, it was kind of a lonely, quiet atmosphere last year, to tell you the truth. So to be back in front of our fans and, the ruckus atmosphere, it's been a lot of fun. And we had a really great crowd and high energy in our last game. And unfortunately, we weren't able to pull that one off, but the crowd really did everything they could to help us win that one.
We have to talk about that last game out. It was a game that didn't end up your way. IUPUI hit a couple of big threes down the stretch. What did you see from your team in that game, and what kind of things are you working on this week to improve for the next time out?
I saw a lot of really good things. I mean, we were picked to finish 7th in our league, and IUPUI was picked to finish 1st. So we were actually down by 11 points at one point and, made a great comeback and were able to take the lead. And the biggest thing is we just got to finish. I mean, I thought, we had some mental breakdowns down the stretch, missed some free throws, had some turnovers. And, we kind of had that game in our grasp. But, the true championship team that IUPUI is, they snatched a victory out of the claws of defeat. And so we're going to learn a lot from it and be better for it the next time we play.
Every time fans go into the Bigley Center, they get to see you coach on the sidelines. They get to see what you bring to game days. Talk about a little bit what you bring to practices and what you bring to other things that fans don't get to see. And walk us through a typical YSU women's basketball practice.
Well, we try to have as high a sense of urgency and game-like situation and effort as we can. We want to make it as close to game-like as we can. So, but on a regular day, I mean, we'll have a group lifting probably a half hour before practice starts, and then we'll go into film and watch film for 15 to 20 minutes, and then we'll go on the court for anywhere from an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending on what time of year it is. So that's kind of a typical day, but we'll cover the team that we'll work on some fundamentals and some shooting and some rebounding, but then we'll get into covering the team that we're playing next.
At this level of basketball, you have to have girls that you can count on to be coaches on the floor. Who have been some of the vocal leaders that you've seen lead this team this year and have helped you succeed as much as you have?
Maddie Alba has really stepped up vocally this year. Chelsea Olsen has been a captain for the last 4 years, so she does a great job. Megan Callahan has stepped up, and Lily Ritz and Paige Shy have all done different aspects of leadership. So we've had really great leadership this year, and I think that's showed in our record.
Can you put into words what kind of blessing Chelsea has been this year with all the new faces that we talked about and trying to keep this team gelled and together?
Yeah, I mean, Chelsea's just a true unselfish team player that has a ton of talent. I mean, she's kind of given up some of the scoring to help the players around her be better. So it's just a tribute to what type of person she is and her family. And we're really lucky to have had her here for the last 5 years.
Coach, before we let you go, YSN, we cover so many high school athletes, so many high school girls basketball players. What kind of advice would you give to a high school girls basketball player that's looking to continue their career at the next level, whether it be at your level, whatever level they're looking at? What kind of advice would you give to them?
I think hard work and effort, there's no substitute for that. But I think, unselfishness, if you can find a player that can make the players around her better, that's someone really special. There's some kids that can really shoot it, or some kids that can really dribble it, or defenders, different things, but someone that can do all those things, but more importantly, make everyone else around her better, is truly a special player.
Coach, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. I know it's a busy schedule. We appreciate your time, and we look forward to the continued success of this program and hopefully talking to you again real soon.
Sounds good. Thanks a lot, Anthony.
That was John Barnes, the head coach of the YSU women's basketball team, and we're going to skip right from him over to an interview with Malia Majestro, the one of the players over there at YSU, and has been a integral part to their success, historic success at YSU in the women's basketball program. So here is an interview with Malia Majestro.
Anthony Hartwig here with you, and we are joined with the first ever Running Point player profile of the YSU women's basketball team, joined by Malia Majestro, sophomore for the Penguins. Malia, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
Thank you for having me.
You know, you come into your second year, you guys are experiencing a ton of success this season. Put into words what this year has been like for you guys and kind of the roller coaster you guys are on right now.
Yeah, we've gotten a bunch of new girls this year on the team, and we've been putting in work since summer this whole time. And I think, that success is really starting to show off for us. And, we're going to continue to keep on working and never be satisfied.
When you look at maybe how you had anticipated this season or the expectations you guys had compared to where you are now, how would you compare those two?
I would definitely say we had great expectations. Definitely wasn't sure exactly how it was going to go because we had so many new girls, just seeing how our team chemistry would be and everything like that. But, I think the expectations have exceeded, and I think we have just been doing so well and playing together as a team. We're really such a close group of friends on and off the court. So I'd say that's really been helping us.
I had your coach on a couple minutes ago, and he was talking about how it was kind of a process getting everyone gelled with all these new faces. From your perspective, what's it been like getting to know some of the new faces on this team and watching the team chemistry build every day?
Yeah, since summer we would have like a team bonding event like every weekend, and even without basketball, we like literally love each other we hang out all the time. So I think that really has been helping aid us into our success for the season because we are just so close with each other and we're all so unselfish. We don't care who scores. So I think that's really been helping us too. We're all just in it for each other, and that's really been the key to our success.
Yeah, and this unit team basketball that you guys play, what kind of advantage does that give you against other teams when they're trying to scout you guys and they realize that there's not one player they can shut down or one player they have to key in on, and you guys can hurt so many people in so many different ways?
Right. We have great presence in the post with Lily and our other big. So if they do, when we pound into the post, people have to kind of help off of the guards to stop Lily. So when she kicks it out to the shooters and we're ready to shoot and we're hitting shots, it's very hard to guard that inside out. So I think that's really been our biggest thing is being able to get it done, through the bigs and also through the shooting guards and just, really opening up the floor for that way.
It's your second season. You got through freshman year, but let's go back to that year real quick and talk about how it was transitioning from the high school realm and high school basketball and then moving that next step up and getting into the college and what that experience was like for you and what it was like to kind of acclimate to this new level of basketball.
Yeah, definitely the biggest thing I'd say from high school to college is that everyone bigger, better, faster, stronger. So just getting, adjusted to that, I think was my biggest thing. I've worked really hard in the off season on, my game and stuff that I need to improve upon that I figured out, my freshman year. So I think I've, did well in that. So I think the biggest thing, just getting adjusted to the different changes, everyone, in high school, I feel like there's always just one or two really good girls, whereas in college, everyone's good. So that's kind of the biggest difference I'd say.
And then obviously you're committed in high school, but in college it's so much different. It's almost like a full-time job with being on the basketball team. How have you handled the up in time commitment and the things that you have to do to kind of keep yourself at that level that you talked about where everyone is good at this level and you have to kind of keep up with that?
I'd say, my teammates just, pushing me and just us all being there for each other. We really make it more than just basketball. We're building relationships outside of basketball. And I think that really helps with basketball because it makes it fun. We love being there, for each other and just pushing each other, making each other better. Practices are so competitive and it's been like that all summer, all preseason and now all during the season. So I think that's the biggest thing.
This is such a confident group of girls when they go out on the floor every night. What do you think that confidence comes from? And what kind of a blessing is it to know everyone on that floor is confident in their own abilities?
Just, that relationship that we have, the team chemistry, I think really we all know that we're capable of hitting big shots. We're all capable of scoring, all the time. So I think the biggest thing is just having confidence with each other, as teammates. I think that's the biggest thing. when we pass to each other, we know it's going to go in before it even does. So I think that's the biggest thing, and that's really been aiding our success.
Let's talk about Coach Barnes and his staff and what it's like to be under them, and what kind of things they've done to help you grow, not just as a player, but as a person through this journey of your college career.
Yeah. They're, great coaches, great coaching staff. I think, they basketball wise, they always, they have so much confidence in us. They literally tell us to shoot, like whenever we're open, shoot it. They want us to shoot it. So I think just having that confidence really helps us. And then off the court, they're always pushing us to be better people, to be better student athletes. We always have like academic meetings and stuff like that, just making sure that we're doing well in school. So I think just outside of basketball, they're just making sure, we're on the right track in all aspects of life.
For the first time on Sunday, you guys have to bounce back from a league loss. You fell to IUPUI this week in practice and leading up to your next game. What has kind of the mentality been? What have some of the conversations have been like? And how do you think this team will bounce back from adversity? Some of the stuff that they haven't really had to deal with so much this year.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing this week is just not letting, the loss kind of linger. It happened. We have to put in the past and move on and learn from it. And that was the biggest thing. Just from watching film and stuff, we have to, see what we did wrong and then correct it so that doesn't happen again. But I think we're going to bounce back. We have Robert Morris ahead of us and played them once already, so we kind of know what they're all about. So just preparing for them this week and got to come out strong because, we are a great team as well as, all the teams in our league are. So just, bringing back that confidence and doing all the little things that we know we can do.
Who have been some of your role models through your journey that you've looked at and say, I want to either mold my game after this person, or I learned a lot from this person when you look back on some of the things that you've gone through your basketball journey?
I would definitely say Chelsea is someone that I kind of try to like mold my game a little bit. She's been here for a while and, she's a great player and I admire this, the way she plays and stuff like that. So definitely Chelsea. And then also Maddie as well. She's a great leader. She always keeps us together. So I definitely look up to her, leadership wise and, try to take after her.
Talk a little bit about your basketball journey. Obviously, to get to this level, you have to have a love for the sport. Where did that come from? And when's your first kind of memory of basketball? And how did your passion of the sport kind of grow as you went on playing?
My whole entire family is a basketball family. My dad has been my coach since second grade. So definitely just growing up in a basketball environment is kind of where I grew love for that. So, watching my older brother, he plays college basketball, watching him play, my whole life and just being around basketball all the time. That's, really where my love for the game started.
When you do have to hang up the cleats, which is not going to be for a while, but when you kind of reflect on some of the things that you've had in your basketball career, what are some of your favorite memories so far on the floor with either YSU or Kennedy Catholic or any team that you've been able to play on?
Yeah. So Kennedy Catholic, I've had, great memories. One vivid memory that I always have with me, my sophomore year, I believe we were playing our like rival West Middlesex and we were down by like, I want to say 19 points in the third quarter and we came back and won. So that was definitely like my high school memory that I will always remember. And then college wise, I want to say just like literally this year, I'd say I'll always remember because I've made so many great relationships with the new girls and just the season that we've been having so far. Like, I'm just so proud of us. And I think I'll always remember this because it's more than just basketball. Like we have learned so much, like we've gone through adversity, with COVID and everything. And, me, myself, like I had injury at the beginning of the season. So just coming off from that, I think, this whole entire season is definitely something to remember. And I'm just thankful for all my teammates and coaches and everyone a part of it.
Do you think all the adversity that this team had to go through, especially last year, makes it easier to kind of just bounce back from a loss? Like a loss is kind of small adversity compared to some of the things that you guys have had to face.
Yeah, for sure. Last year we had an okay season. We had losses and stuff. So I think we just can't let our loss against IUPUI like put us down at all because they're a great team. We're a great team. And, it's one loss. Like if that's the only loss we have in the season, like that's fine. You know what I mean? So I think at the end of the day, we just have to learn from it. And some of the stuff that we let happen, just can't let that happen again.
With all our player profiles, whether they be high school or college, we like to give the player the chance to kind of give a shout out to their support system, the people that have always had their back and the people that they really wouldn't be where they are without. So I want to give you the chance to shout out some people in your life that really support you no matter what.
Yeah, definitely my parents and my siblings. Shout out to them. They, have supported me my whole entire life. And my parents are at literally every single game, whether it's home or away. They'll travel however many hours it is just to watch me. So definitely thankful for them. And then all my fans, my supporters back from Kennedy, family, friends. I have, so many people that ask me for tickets and have come to support me on my game. So just a shout out to them. Thank you, for everything.
And before we let you go, you have gotten to the level of basketball that a lot of athletes that we cover dream about getting to. So for the high school athlete that's going through the recruiting process, whether they're looking at D1 or D2 or D3, whatever they're looking at, what's some advice that you would give to them moving forward in their process?
Definitely college basketball is a big commitment. I want to say that, especially D1, just being able to manage, school and basketball and having like an outside life, that's kind of the biggest thing. And to just not let your highs ever get too high and your lows get too low. That would be my biggest advice because, things are going to happen along the way and you just got to, weather through that. And I think, just stay positive through it all.
All right, Malia, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. We know your schedule is busy. We appreciate the time. We look forward to continued success in this program and seeing what you have to do the rest of the season.
Thank you so much.
That was a great interview with Malia Majestro, starting guard for Youngstown State women's basketball team, who is off to an historic start in not just their regular season, but their Horizon League season as well. Just one loss in the conference so far. They still have a 2-game lead in that conference as they venture towards what we hope to be an NCAA tournament berth this season.
That would be something really, really cool if that were the case too. As they're gonna have to keep on keeping on. But yeah, like you said, they've been very, very impressive this season.
Right now, bracketology has them. If they win the Horizon League, they have them as a 13 seed going to Baylor. So
it'd be a heck of a game too to go out and play Baylor too. Baylor has a pretty good basketball program, I've heard.
First year head coach,
I don't know what was going on with Baylor.
First year head coach Kim Mulkey left Baylor last year, so they do have a first year head coach, but they're still just one of the tremendous programs of women's basketball in the country. So it would be a fun experience for everyone to see YSU go and play there or anywhere. Really, you get into the tournament, you're not picky who you play.
Yeah, Baylor has boys and girls. I mean, men's and women's, I should say, for Baylor. I mean, I'm pretty sure the men's basketball did something pretty big last year.
Just a little.
Yeah, just a little. So basketball definitely good, but that would be a very, very cool opportunity and then a cool game to see too for the YSU women's if that were to happen.
All right, Ty, with your return, it is time for picks. And I've been doing picks, but they haven't been high-pressure picks because nothing's been on the line.
Yeah, and I believe I have is it 5 or is it – it's 5 still because we split.
We split the last day, so it is 5. 5-game lead going into today. A slower day, but we still have games to pick. There are some makeup games from yesterday that have been moved to today. So let's just go right to the Twitter poll and see what the fans are saying about these matchups. If you want to pick along with me and Ty, head over to Twitter. The handle is @RunningPointYSN. You can find the picks thread and vote on your team that you want to win there. And we'd love to hear who you think will win these matchups tonight. And Ty, we start with Canfield South Range girls basketball. This game has been moved from its original start date, which was supposed to be the last game of the season back in late February, but now it's moved to today. Canfield going to South Range. The fan vote has 72% of the vote. Ty, we split the last time we were up, I believe. That means jump ball. Don't know where the possession is turning, though. We should really keep track of this a lot better.
Yeah, I'm not sure where the possession
I'll
is.
just give it to you because you're in the lead. So what do you want to do, defer or take it?
I'll defer because I want to see where you're going to go with this one first. So let's go. Let's defer it.
A game note in this one, Lexi Giles is 3 points away from 1,000 career points. So we all kind of expect her to at least get that. Canfield in close games this year has struggled. They've struggled to make the game-winning plays down the stretch. They've definitely struggled with turnovers, which I think this is going to be a turnover-heavy game because both teams play extremely solid pressure defense and both teams kind of have struggled with turning the ball over this year. So could see a lot of turnovers today in this game. I don't imagine it'll be extremely high scoring. And this is a chance for South Range to get a program, not a program defining win, but season defining win, because so far in the games against bigger opponents, they have struggled this year. It sounds hard.
It is hard. It is very hard.
Because I know South Range will play good defense, and I know this one will be close, and I know Canfield has struggled in close games, but you'll look at Canfield and you say they have more weapons, period. They just have more weapons on the floor. South Range does. Abby McElroy can shoot. They have Alyssa Dill, Summer Samarone, Cami Dill. You know what? The heck with it. I'll go with the home team. Give me my alum.
You're going with the alum?
Give me my not my alum. Give me my alma mater. Give me South Range. Get the win at home.
All right. I will then promptly split with you, and I will take the other one in the Battle of Canfield, as I will take the Lady Cardinals and this one.
Matt Reel used to coach at South Range. Now he coaches at Canfield, so it's a connection for him. Is he not his old stomping grounds because he coached at the old school, but still kind of his old stomping grounds a little bit.
And he was a graduate of Fitch, so
so
I like him a little bit more.
Bit everywhere.
I like him a little bit more because
we move on. This is another girls basketball game. Caney going to Boardman as part of the doubleheader. Boardman girls will play, and then the Boardman boys will play Warren Harding after. Ty, Cheney, Boardman. Boardman on a 2-game winning streak. Can they make it 3? I say yes. What do you say?
Yeah, I'll go Boardman as well. I've been paying attention to them, and they've been looking solid too. I think they're going to start rolling a little bit as season winds down.
Emma Mills is starting to be a consistent threat down low, which makes them so much harder to deal with because you can't just focus on Mackenzie Riccatelli and her ability to get her own shot off the dribble. Now she can drive on you and dump it off to Emma Mills, and that's a high percentage shot now. Early in the season, Emma Mills kind of struggled with finishing down low. So you still had to defend her, but now she's starting to finish through contact and be a much more tougher post player to deal with. When you add that to some of the other weapons they have, Gosky's a big weapon for Boardman. So they're starting to kind of put it together, this young team. So I get Boardman to win. So do the fans. They have them at 87% fan vote right now. And we'll move on. A girls basketball game. This one won't be on the network. It's outside of – it's at a non-YSN school, but it is Garfield heading to Bristol, and the G-men have been on some kind of run ever since that loss to Fort Fry back in December. Ty, it is your first pick.
And
I'm sorry, that Boardman one should have been yours, and I took it. So now you get this one.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Bristol's a good team, though.
Yeah, they're better at boys basketball. They're a powerhouse in boys basketball. They're decent at girls, but I don't want to help you. I'm not going to help you. If you think they're great, then we'll just keep it at that. We'll pause this pitch right now because we have our CEO and boss man, TJ Oakley, coming into the studio, which probably means some breaking news.
We do have some breaking news. So I just confirmed with the Northeast 8 Athletic Conference that Jefferson is no longer going to be part of the NE8 in 2023. They're going to be joining the Chagrin Valley Conference in 2023. So what I don't have answers for yet, and we're working on right now in the newsroom, is does that mean next year, like next football season and next fall, beginning with that Jefferson's no longer the NE8?
Or does that mean starting at the next calendar year? In the middle of a sports season, but the start of –
which is what they did, I believe, with some sports.
They did that with the start of the NE8 because remember, like, basketball was the NE8 season before football.
Correct. So, interesting. There's a lot of intrigue in this because the Chagrin Valley Conference, if I'm not mistaken, that's the one that has Orange School District, like out towards Cleveland. So,
yep.
Yeah. I'm thinking that's the one because we actually met with Orange.
So Jefferson's not saving any travel.
Well, they're in a tough spot. I mean, and that's why I think they were in the NE8 in the first place, was because they're kind of out in the middle of nowhere. But it wasn't that much. It was an hour for us here in Palatine to get to Jefferson.
Yeah, most schools it's like a 45-minute drive,
which isn't crazy because you see that the majority of times. But yeah, interesting decision. I'm not sure what goes into it, because if that's the case, the CVC or I think they call themselves that, they have like 24, 25 teams, 26.
Yeah, they're a big one, hefty.
So I mean, that's basically like I mean, it is. In fact, that's a bigger MVAC. So it makes me wonder, are there tiers tied? Do you know that? Has to be, right? You can't have 26 teams or whatever in one conference and not have tiers.
And then you wonder if the NE8 is going to try to find someone to come fill that spot. Or
well, it won't make a whole lot of sense to be the NE8 if you have 7 teams.
Might pull a Big Ten where they're the Big Ten with 14.
I would imagine. I mean, what team would fit? Louisville's independent still. I would love to see Louisville in that conference.
I always thought Howland would.
Canfield and Howland. And
then if you just complete the dismantling of the AAC,
it'd be interesting.
Hey, we have a phone call.
Oh boy, our car's warranty needs extended.
Let's see what this is. Hello, you were on Running Point Live on YSN. Who do we got on the line?
Yeah, hi, this is Bob Jones. First of all, I just wanted to say thank you for taking my call, and I really appreciate you guys, and I really love watching the show.
Bob, thank you so much for the call and for watching and tuning in. And what's on your mind today?
So I got a kind of an off-the-radar team to potentially join the Northeast 8 Conference. I know this is a little bit off the spectrum here, but I'm going to go to Springfield Tigers. I think they can compete pretty well in that conference.
I've heard that was a thing. A lot of people were swirling around too on social media when I was hearing murmurs of this possibly happening, and we finally get the confirmation here on YSN. I think that's the excitement everyone wants to think about too, just to have those kind of matchups too. That'd be interesting. But I feel like there's a lot that needs to go into Springfield, even leaving the MVAC, to be able to join the NE8.
I mean, their boys are they played Poland last night. Their girls are playing Hubbard tonight.
Yeah, I can see it happen. Here's the issue: is the NE8 and you hate to say this, the NE8 is a football conference, right? So to bring in a D6 program, even though it's Springfield, right? There's not a whole lot of points there for these teams to have if they beat Springfield, and if Springfield beats them. Which is a real possibility. You look at that could be trouble.
Imagine these teams with a loss to South Range and Springfield in the season that are 4-3.
Hey Bob, can you turn your whatever media you have there down? We're getting some feedback.
Yeah, sorry about that.
That's okay. So why do you think Springfield would be a solid pick, Bob, for the NE8?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just overall, I would say I understand they're a smaller school. They're D6 in football, but I really do believe that the success that they've had in football and even basketball and baseball as well, I think it's, they're starting to get, obviously they're homegrown, which is amazing, but I think their athletics, the past couple of years, I think they're going to continue to grow, and I really think they'd be a great fit for the conference, even though they are a smaller school. But I think athletics-wise, they can really compete in the Northeast 8.
Competition level, you're absolutely right. I really think that Springfield would be a great fit from the competition. But I think when you look at these schools, they're going to say, what's in it for us? There's got to be something in it. And that's going to be the problem, is Springfield would be a great fit for, the NE8, but is the NE8 a great fit for Springfield, so to speak?
Absolutely.
And there's a lot that goes into that. There's a lot that, and it's not, we say it's a football conference, but there's a lot more that goes into it. When you look at, a Louisville, that's a travel. It's basically, as Quinn said, when we talked about it out in the newsroom, so that's the same like length to go as a Jefferson.
Absolutely.
However, they're a D3 school.
Yeah.
So if you beat Louisville, you're getting some points.
Football, I think they're 2.
Are they 2? Yeah. Okay. So even better. You're getting a ton of points if you beat a Louisville. Same with a Howland, and same with a Canfield. If you beat that program, my goodness, you're racking it up. And what every conference wants at the end, I think everybody saw it, especially this year in the playoffs, is when one school from the NE8 is playing, they kind of support their own. They support their own conference. So I'm intrigued. There's a lot of names that can be swirling around. I try to get confirmation on it if any names are being rumored. We've heard Howland before. We haven't necessarily heard Canfield. We've heard Springfield, like Ty said. Louisville, again, would be a nice – I'd at least want to hear the conversation for Louisville as to why they wouldn't want them in the conference. Travel is going to be the top, but Bob's got a great call with Springfield, man. I think that they'd be perfect in the conference if it wasn't for being a D6 program. But like we've said before, South Range is 2 kids away from being a D6 program themselves. So it's going to be interesting.
And then you look at those
One
teams.
more name out there before
Sure.
Before I leave. I know West Branch are right now in the EBC conference, but a couple teams that I've heard are leaving that conference. So, if West Branch or maybe a Salem, gets put in that position, I could potentially maybe seeing them.
That's not a bad pick either. The only thing is I think the EBC is going to be gaining – they're losing Canton South, and I think they're gaining another team here locally, to which we're not going to break that yet until it actually happens. But when you look at it, the EBC is growing. They're one of those conferences that they're growing because they can do some big things. Louisville was part of the NBC, if you remember right, and when they created the EBC, Louisville was the lone man out. But West Branch being that's a natural rivalry with Salem. I think they like where they're at right now in the EBC, but that wouldn't be a bad choice to see it. I guess, Anthony, the more I think about it, you could be right. They could just say, we're going to stick with 7, but I don't see it happening. I think that conference is too good to not attract another crown jewel. And I'm not saying that Jefferson wasn't, because they held their own in multiple sports, but it was always a weird fit for them. You know what I mean? They were just too far off the beaten path. I think the CVC is going to be good for them moving forward, and I think they'll be very competitive in it. But
and then, if it is Springfield, that's going to be a big loss to the MVAC as far as cachet in that league.
I don't see it happening. I don't see it, like the MVAC in Springfield is like peanut butter and jelly. Right. You know what I mean? And they have that would be a huge loss. And I got to be honest, if that happens, look out, because you're going to see that same tilt-a-whirl spin with conferences that we saw. Was it 5 years ago?
The
ITCL broke up, and the EOAC came to be, and then there was the NE8. We could see another one of those if indeed Springfield would leave. I just don't see it happen.
I agree with you, DJ. I think Louisville is a great fit. I think Louisville being independent, and I think Louisville being that type of school, I feel like it would be a good fit for the NE8 right now, being able to stay competitive too, because I think that was the whole reason why the NBC wasn't a great fit for Louisville Athletics before, is because they wanted better competition with their schedule at one point. And then I think going into football season too, looking at what Louisville's program can bring athletically, they had a down year, but we know that Louisville Athletics has always been huge too, and they always have great teams. So I think adding those 7 teams to their schedule year in and year out for the Leopards would be huge for them.
And I'm going to throw this out there. If I had to pick a team that would fit best in the NE8 right this minute, Canfield's it for me. Poland's in there. You know what I mean already? You look at some of these teams they play, and the NE8, I would imagine, would open up their arms to them. It's a D3 school. You know what I mean? So you've already got Hubbard, that's a D3 school. D2 might be a little bit big, to get in there because imagine Fitch.
You'd have
being there.
Niles too. Niles is D3, so you'd have 3 D3 schools in there.
That's
Then
not bad. I don't think that's a bad mix. I think D2 is a little bit too much. You know what I mean? But I wouldn't mind seeing Canfield in there. I also wouldn't mind seeing any of those 4 schools. I wouldn't mind seeing in there. I just think that when you look at it from a logistics standpoint, it's going to be hard for the NEA to bring in a D6 team when South Range is the smallest school right now, right?
Yeah.
And that, they don't want
South Range and Jefferson were
Yeah.
the 2 D5s.
But
You
Springfield's going to be competitive. South Range is going to be competitive. But then
that's the problem. Like you'd almost be better off to have a non-competitive.
Well, what I was going to
team.
say too is that if you're a team like Niles losing to a South Range and a Springfield in the same season, that's D5, D6, and you said South Range 2 guys away from D6, having 2 D6 losses. Now, if you're going by the Joe Idle power rankings, that's going to affect them a lot for playoffs.
Season's over. Really, you would have to win out against the other D3 teams and maybe hopefully schedule a D2 or even a D1. Early on. I don't know. This has sent shockwaves up and down, and we've only seen the beginning of it.
Right.
You know what I mean? We're only about 20 minutes into this breaking news, and it's going to be interesting. I think you're right, Anthony. I think that Jefferson will finish the year in the NE8, and then it'll start anew in 2023, the calendar year, the way they did before.
So that wonder, because basketball's in the middle, do you think that they'll start the basketball season in the new conference, or do you think they'll just say, "Well, start baseball, softball in the new conference, finish out our"?
How did it go before? Was it basketball first?
Basketball started. The NE8 started that year. Like it was supposed to be 2017.
Yeah.
So 2017-18 season basketball was NE8, but 2017 NE8 didn't exist in football. So I think 18 was the year in basketball started.
Okay.
Unless you're counting, the beginning of the school year, and they're just saying beginning of 2023 football season is when they're going to start.
Is he still on the line, by the way? Is Bob still on the line?
Bob, you still there?
No, he hung up. I'm sitting there like, well, this poor guy is all he wants to do is talk. Interesting stuff. I mean, obviously it changes our show today at 3:00 for the Power Hour because I want to hear from people who they want to see. Here's an opportunity for you to plead your case on getting into the NE8 conference. It's an elite conference. Let's not just make any bones about it. It's an elite conference. As is to me the MVAC, especially in basketball right now. That's an elite conference. Baseball and track as well. So I'm interested, man. This is going to be good stuff.
You always wonder if there's that elite team in the fringe of our coverage area that might sneak into the NE8 in Ashtabula County or something like that. You never know. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but I'm not super familiar with teams that go a little bit outside of our
How big's Southeast?
Ravenna Southeast?
They're D5.
They're D5 in football.
So probably not.
That wouldn't be a bad ad, though.
They're
They're
that
good.
Portage County conference with JFK and Bristol.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not. I mean, listen, the NE8 is an elite conference. So this is like we're talking about Big Ten stuff here. The Big Ten just doesn't let anybody in,
right.
And the NE8 won't either. The NE8 has to. It's got to be a perfect fit, or at least close to it. And then there's going to be a honeymooning period where, but again, I'd love to see Canfield walk in and just be the bull in the china shop. You know what I mean? Howland, I'm going to change it up here. Howland to me has the biggest, easiest fit. They're the biggest plug and play right now for the NE8. But Canfield would be, man, would that be a pretty pickup? That'd be a pretty pickup. I'm telling you for the NE8.
Canfield too. I feel like they're going to want to keep it anywhere between Division 3 to 5 because that's what they have right now. I don't think they're going to want to go to D6 or D2 and add that extra layer in there because, we're talking to, and the more I think about it, I mean, Louisville, I would love to see them too, just because I think those games every year would be phenomenal. But Louisville would have a lot to lose then if they join that. That's more
Think about the traveling for Louisville.
where Springfield, it's the NE8 has the teams in the NE8 have a lot to lose with Springfield joining, especially those upper division teams. Louisville is risking a lot going into that because, like we said, you lose to a South Range or vice versa. That all of a sudden can put your season at risk being Division II.
And we're saying this, Ty, and you have to admit that Springfield's got to be feeling good where they're at right now. You know what I mean? Because
they're the class of the Scarlet side of that MVAC in football, at least. I mean,
they get it done in football. Look where they're at in basketball right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean,
excuse me, you look at the game last night with Poland and Springfield. Who wouldn't want to see that twice a year?
Especially in the basketball realm, that would definitely bring a lot of intrigue to it.
I'd sign up for that every day and twice on Sunday.
All right, so this new conference that Jefferson's going into has 4 divisions. So I don't know where they're going to put them, but like Edgewood is in there, and I know Edgewood's a big rival for Jefferson.
They're all Cleveland schools.
You have Brooklyn, you have Cuyahoga Heights, Independence is in there as well. Lutheran West, Richmond Heights, Garfield Heights Trinity, Wycliffe is in there. West Geauga. The Perry Pirates are in there.
Perry Pirates.
So, Ashtabula Lakeside, Kirtland.
I just got a text. Why not Crestview?
Geneva.
DJ Folkley in this in our comments too, saying East Liverpool and Beaver local.
DJ Folkley.
No relation. There's going to be a lot of why not us? You know what I mean? Why not us? But then you go look at that schedule that you have to face, and these teams you got to face twice a year in basketball and volleyball and baseball and softball. It's not a pretty sight unless you are ready. You know what I mean? Because those are some good teams that you're going up against for a conference title. And some of these teams choose to be independent because it's not a solid fit for them. And when an opening like this comes to fruition, the NE8, my goodness, I'm taking in Scotty's time, aren't I? So, sorry, Scotty, come on in.
No, if someone's gonna bump me, I want it to be a legend. So.
Listen to this guy. But I don't know about you, Anthony, but for volleyball, I definitely would take seeing Louisville in that conference as well. I mean, Louisville versus any of those NE8 teams volleyball wise, I'd pay to see any of those games.
All the girls sports, Louisville would just rock in the NE8 when they, the basketball, volleyball, and their softball program that just 2 years ago won a state championship. So
that would be so much fun to just see the competitiveness in the women's sports if Louisville were to join.
And that's where I think like Springfield, all of a sudden their women's teams would be moved into an NE8. You wonder how, of course we're talking football, but how would the other sports kind of compare to the
as Nick Blanche says too, I mean, Springfield girls basketball, you go into the NE8, you kind of be, like you said, baptized by fire, and you're gonna get an awakening. But I mean, it would definitely make them better, I would think too.
All right, Scotty, we don't want to take up too much of your time. Ty, you just want to go, real quick, this picks. Don't even go into why we're picking them. Just
let's go real quick.
Garfield, Bristol. I take Garfield.
I'll take Garfield.
Okay, Newton Falls versus Lakeview girls. I'll take Lakeview.
Yeah, I got Lakeview.
Okay, Warren Harding versus Boardman boys. I'll take Boardman.
Boardman all day, yep.
All right, Indian Creek versus Beaver Local boys. I'll take Beaver Local.
Yeah, give me Beaver Local.
All right, Mooney versus West Branch. This is girls. I'll take West Branch.
West Branch all day, yep.
Maplewood versus Wyndham. This is girls. I'll take Maplewood.
Maplewood, yep.
Western Reserve Academy versus Louisville girls basketball. I'll take Louisville.
Yep.
East Palestine versus Columbiana girls basketball. I'll take Columbiana.
Yep.
Latonia versus Sebring boys. I take Sebring.
Yeah, I'll take Sebring.
Howland versus East girls. I'll take Howland.
Yeah, Howland.
Springfield versus Hubbard. I believe this is the girls' game. I'll take Springfield.
Yep, Springfield.
Bristol versus LeBray boys' game. I'll take Bristol.
Yeah, Bristol's looking real good this year.
And last but not least, the boys' game between Ravenna and Garfield. I'll take Garfield.
Yeah, I got to take Garfield as well.
All right, so we only split on the Canfield Southgate girls' game.
Yep.
All right, Scotty. It is your turn, buddy.
Yeah, it is. It is my turn, and I guess we don't have time for a topic today. So
Maybe 2 questions. I think you can fit 2 quick ones.
yeah, I'll get in.
If they're not 6 parts.
For the 2. Here we go. Here's the one I'm gonna lead off with for your tie. I like to know who was the first player to hit 3 home runs in a game in both the American and National Leagues, and in what years did this person do so?
Okay, this is three points in the line. Ties up 61-38. By the way.
I don't think this is a trick question. I mean, because of just the name that's attached to it, I don't think it's a trick question, but it does. It feels like it could be the way Scotty is asking it, but I feel like it. I thought it was Babe Ruth, and it was with the Yankees in 30, and then he did it with the Boston Braves in 35.
You get all 3?
You got it, man.
I thought it might have been a trick question because there might have been one like the 1800s or something, but I was like, I don't know if Scotty's trying to stump me with this one or he's trying to get sadistic, but that's what I thought it was.
No, I gotta tip my cap, man. You're right on the money, as usual. Here we go for the other question I had. I want you, Ty, to give me the 3 World Series champions that won the series 5-3. So the 3 World Series champions that won the World Series 5-3. And I want to know the opponents they beat as well.
5-3? I didn't even know that happened. I'm out here like, what? Why did that series go 8 games? I don't understand.
The first one I remember is the 1903. It was Boston versus Pittsburgh because that was a best-of-9 series, and Boston won that one 5-3. But you said there's 2 other ones in there.
There's 2 other ones.
I'm trying to think of all the years that it was a best-of-9 series because it was a best-of-9 series for a few years, and I don't know when they abandoned that.
Thank God they did.
Anthony's like, that's too much baseball for me.
I think I don't know.
It was the Boston Americans was their name though, because I think that was one of the first World Series.
You got the first one right. Who were the other 2, and what opponents did they defeat?
Oh,
so the next one, okay. So I know that one was Giants over Yankees 5-3. That would have been in 1921, I think, is when it was Giants.
That is correct. There's one more.
All right, so
This one is the one that's tripping me up because I can't remember if there's one that even comes after that. I feel like they abandoned it in the 30s. I can't remember the exact timeline, though. I feel like if it wasn't then, it might have been the mid-20s they abandoned it. So it might have had to happen before. You're gonna get me on this last one, Scotty, because I can't think of this last one.
Aren't you just gonna guess?
I'll say the year. I'll say the year.
He was almost about to surrender points to you, and you trying to make him guess.
Yeah,
Well,
I know.
It wasn't 1920 because 1920 was the year the Indians won, and that wasn't a 5-3 series. So I know it wasn't 20. I know 1914 was a sweep. I'll say you know what? The one I can't think of the year. I think it was maybe 1918, maybe 1917. I thought it might have been, I think Cincinnati. Who did they play though? Cincinnati was in a few. I'd say Cincinnati and maybe the Red Sox at that point. I think it might have been Cincinnati and the Red Sox. But I don't know. Were they might have been indifferent, but no, I'm going to go with that. I think Cincinnati was in a 5-3 series. I can't remember who they played, and I think it might have been like 1918.
You're right on Cincinnati, but you're off on the year and the team they played. It was Cincinnati, the Reds, but it was in 1919, and the team they played was the Chicago Black Sox.
So I got the wrong sock color and 1 year off.
Ty just got 7 and 9 points.
Yeah.
No, that was a good question, Scotty, because you had to make me think. I knew there was a 9-game series. I couldn't remember when they got rid of it, though. That was a good question.
Makes our score 71-40 because Scotty
still stumps me every time now, though, with the question before. I don't tweet him anymore.
Do you have a quick one?
You gotta be part Android, Ty. I wanted to know. I just wanted to know. This was the last one I had. This one may be tricky to you, especially if you haven't watched any specials on him his recent passing. But this is the last one I have. I want to know from you, Ty, what was and is, as he's deceased now, John Madden, the late John Madden, what was his net worth?
Yeah, Ty's a frequent reader of Forbes magazine. Little did you know.
I feel like I just saw this on like Yahoo News as I was just like searching through something. I feel like there was like a little category with it. I can't imagine he was. I mean, he's in the millions, probably a few hundred mil.
A minute.
I need an exact number.
I'll just say. I mean, I can't give the exact. I'll say something like 200 mil.
You.
No
That's it.
No
was
way.
exactly $200 million. You know?
No way.
You saw you. USO. You know what? You got it. I can't.
I really didn't think I was gonna get it. I just
was
said
exactly 200 mil.
How are you worth exactly 200 million? You didn't have a dollar or a dime over. That's what I thought Scotty was
going to shot in the dark.
I thought the questioner, I thought the answer would be like 338,622,000 or something, like an exact dollar amount that I wouldn't be able to name. I just saved 200 million.
Scotty, I'm so sorry, buddy.
You own me.
That was a total shot.
Once again, Ty, you own me.
That was a guess. That was a guess.
72-40, Ty leads. We'll have
I do have one in the holster for next week.
I'll be ready for you, Scotty. I'm glad to be back.
Thank you guys for having me on today.
You got it, Ty. Scotty.
We'll be back, of course, tomorrow from 12 to 2 on Running Point, and we're going to have a lot to talk about, Anthony. Unwrap some basketball picks. I come back, and we have a lot to talk about of sports happening around the area.
We sure do. Tomorrow we'll do our Price is Right challenge. We didn't have a lot of time today, so we didn't get to it. But tomorrow we'll do our Baird Brothers Price is Right challenge for the first time with 3 different categories: wrestling, girls, and boys basketball.
We're excited for it. See you tomorrow, 12 to 2.
22-hour break for me and Ty. We'll see everybody tomorrow.